passion about that. And as much as I enjoy that, it doesn't really get us anywhere.
Dave Lee, BBC News, Austin, Texas.
So we talk about it.
Yeah.
With us is technology journalist Holly Brockwell, who suffered online abuse herself. Morning to you.
Good morning.
Hi.
We'll come to what can be done about it in a minute, but you have had some really horrible things said to you,
Yes.
about you.
Yeah, plenty of it on pretty much every platform. You know, you get it on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, email. Once it starts, it kind of just starts coming in from everywhere.
And what is it that sort of initially attracted the attention of the trolls, do you think?
I've annoyed them a few times. I think any woman with opinions and a platform gets it to some degree. I've irritated them because I wrote about an advert that was really insensitive to people who'd been through losing somebody to suicide. That set them off. I've talked about starting a technology site for women. That set them off. I wrote something about not wanting children. That really set them off. Weirdly, that was probably the most vicious.
And exclusively male?
Mostly, yeah.
Okay.
It's difficult to know who they are, isn't it? Who's
Very,
sending-
very difficult, yeah. I mean, it's very easy to set up anonymous accounts, particularly on Twitter, where you don't need a picture or your real name or anything. I think it's very cowardly, you know, that people hide behind these kind of puppet accounts, and they know a lot about me, but they're not really willing to admit anything themselves and kind of put anything of themselves out there. I think it tells you quite a lot.
Do you think it's easier now to report and deal with that sort of abuse than it has been in the past?
Definitely, yeah, definitely. I think Facebook and Twitter particularly have worked really hard on making it better for the user. I think it's not a perfect experience yet, but it's a lot better than it was. You know, we have tools like reporting and muting and blocking. That really helps. It makes a lot of difference.
I mean, you know, it's kind of it's an interesting discussion, isn't it? Because why is it incumbent on you to do anything about it? But you know, you've got this incoming horrible stuff.
Yeah.
And what do you choose to do? Do you ignore it? Do you block it? Or do you?
Well, people often tell you how to behave. It's quite irritating. If you say that you're being trolled, people constantly jump in and go, this is what you should do, this is what you should do. And I'm like, well, actually, I can handle myself. And I tend to mute them rather than block them, because I've found that if you block them, obviously they find out, they can see that on Twitter. And it seems to make them angrier. Yeah, it seems to make them angrier, and then they'll go and make another 10 accounts and start harassing you that way. I prefer to mute, because then they don't know, and then they're just kind of screaming into the void, and you just don't see any of it. It's kind of blissful silence. It's lovely.
When you posted those things that you said that caused the problems, isn't that part of putting things like that on the internet? I know it's not particularly the nicest thing that happens, but it does happen. It's part of human nature sometimes.
I mean, yeah, a lot of people say that, like, well, if you put yourself out there, what do you expect? But I don't feel like I should have to be silenced. You know, I don't think I should stop speaking out about things that I think are important. I think there's a lot of emphasis on people who are going through this, on the victims, for them to change their behaviour. You know, people tell you all sorts of things that you should be doing to kind of mitigate the impact of trolling. But actually, I think it's on the trolls, isn't it, to change their behaviour, and nobody really focuses on them.
What is your advice to other people who suddenly find themselves getting horrible messages?
I think it's really difficult. I think everybody...
Without telling them what to do, like...
Yeah.
Which is
Like
what
you just said.
I'm not going to tell you what to do. I think everybody... It's one of those
How
things
not to take it personally, I think that's probably the most useful advice,
that's really difficult. I think if you're a human being, some of it is going to get you personally. I think the really uncreative stuff, you know, where they just tell you to go and kill yourself, that doesn't really bother you so much. It's like when they get really creative, like they go into your background, they start telling you stuff about your life and your family, that's when it gets really gets you. But I think it's worth remembering that often, while it feels like it's hundreds of people, it's often just a couple of really engaged people making loads of accounts.
Right.
So that can help if you can think, you know, this is probably only a few people, it's not like hundreds of people thinking the same thing about me. Also, I think, you know, whatever makes you feel better, you know, some people like to call it out. Like, I particularly like to screenshot things and go, look at this guy, you know, this is ridiculous, and people kind of support you. Some people prefer to block it and just ignore it completely. It's just whatever makes you feel better, and you don't have to listen to anyone's advice on that.
And I think it's an increasing issue for kids now, isn't it, as well? And it can be a very dark and a lonely place, because it can have... I was hearing an account last week of a young man who went every night, it was the same, and every night it was something that he could see, didn't want to talk about it, but it really hurt.
Yeah, definitely. I think often if you can get away from your laptop, your computer for a while, you know, your phone, and just kind of go out. Like when I got it really badly once, one of my friends kind of insisted that we went out for a drink, and we just sat there and looked at each other and had a drink and didn't talk about it whatsoever, and I didn't check my phone, and that really helped.
Do you think women are more targeted more often?
Absolutely, yeah. I think, like everything, women get it worse than anybody else. And I think it's just a particular small segment of kind of throwbacks that don't really like that there are women with power and women with opinions, and they don't like to see us getting an equal share of voice, but they're on the wrong side of history, you know, they'll be proved wrong.
It's lovely to have you on, Holly, and hopefully you get some nice comments after coming on breakfast this morning.
Thank you very much indeed. 7:45 exactly, this is Breakfast on BBC News. Our main stories here this morning. Turkey's president has vowed to bring terrorism to its knees following yesterday's car bombing in the capital, Ankara.
BBC